Hello, people. Today I'm here with James Proctor. How you doing, James?
Hey, doing good. How are you?
Good. And we're gonna have a conversation about Vincent, uh, Vincent the Chin Gigante, and we're gonna talk about what happened, his crazy act. What
hmm
did it cause? What harm did it cause to the family? Was it worth it in the end? And we're going to get into little. His daughter Rita did a on Soft White Underbelly did an interview. Did you watch that, James?
I did. I've watched her a couple of times, but that one was good. It was about a week ago.
And it really made you understand exactly what was going on with the family
Yep.
because of the way he was acting.
Right.
And there's a lot of times you'll hear like, "Oh, Chin was a good boss compared to John Gotti. John Gotti was out there and flamboyant." But you know, the one thing you could say about John Gotti is John Gotti went down like a boss. He
Yep.
never pretended he was anybody else but who he was. And whereas Vincent Gigante pretended he was somebody else, he pretended he was a crazy guy,
Yep.
and it had a huge effect on his whole family. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, most definitely. It was something that was, embarrassing for the family, but unfortunately, when people think about his legacy, that's what they see more than anything is, the crazy act.
And he never spoke on phones,
Nope.
uh, and he whispered. And
hmm
anytime anything he did with paper, he tore up.
Yep.
So he was always afraid of getting busted. And
Yep.
he came up with Vito Genovese liked him a lot,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
and Vito took him under his wing.
hmm
And this was despite the fact that Vito wanted him to kill Frank Costello, and he failed on the hit. And if
Exactly.
and if Vito didn't like him, he in most cases, if you miss the hit like that, you're going to be killed for missing that hit.
Yep, exactly. And so he's probably lucky that Albert Anastasia had already been taken out by then.
No, Albert was still alive.
Oh, he was? Okay,
Albert
yeah.
got killed. Yeah, Albert got killed 7 months later.
Oh, 7 months later. That's right.
Yes,
That was
yes,
afterwards.
yeah.
Yep.
Frank Costello was taken out first.
Yep,
Well,
that's
well,
right.
he was wounded first,
Wounded first.
and
Yep.
he was so scared that he retired. I
Yep.
mean, they shot him, through the head,
Yep.
and it deflected, and by
hmm
some miracle of God, he did not die.
Nope.
The Chin was kind of nervous when he took the shot,
Yep.
and their plan was to take out Costello, then to take out Anastasia.
Yep.
Well, once Costello stepped down, they knew that they had to take out Anastasia, and as everybody knows, in that famous hit, they took him out in the barbershop.
Yep.
Okay. And so Vito wind up going to prison and dying in prison himself, didn't he? I
Yeah,
mean,
he did. Definitely did. And so he spent what was his last 10, 12 years of his reign in prison.
and he did, and he was one of those guys that did a lot of. Vito did a lot of prison time,
Yes,
and
he did.
but the Chin got charged. Somebody witnessed the Chin shooting Costello, and he
Yep,
wound
is a
up,
door guy. Yep, door
and
guy.
he wound up getting some time because of it, and he went to prison. He did his time,
Mm-hmm.
and this is the ambush. Frank Costello was shot, ambushed out the apartment door,
Yep.
and he wound up doing his time. And here's what he looked like back then during the hit. It looks kind of like a Johnny Cash / Elvis Presley guy, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting before the hit, and this is kind of weird that he is, because he's so scared about getting arrested. He did have fear of that for whatever reason, but he gained over 100 pounds. He was like 300 pounds when he did the attempt on Costello's life. He almost, he was basically waddling, is what the doorman said. And then he went on the lam for a few months and came back like 100 pounds lighter for the trial.
Well, there he is before the hit, and here's him in '57 when they brought him in on the hit,
hmm
and he turned himself in.
He did.
And how much time did he wind up getting?
Well, he ended up in 59, and he was caught up in some of the actually the narcotic stuff with Vito Genovese. And so he was in from like 59 to 1966. So he was in there for about 7 years. He wasn't in there obviously as long as Genovese.
Well, he's lucky that Frank lived. That's what it comes
Yes,
down to.
yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay, and then Vito dies, and how does the power structure work in the family at that point?
Yeah, so when he died, then it ended up having a series of like what they call a street boss and then a real boss. So Philip Lombardo actually succeeded Genovese.
And then when did see the thing was no one's ever sure when the Chin took power because he was very secretive about it.
Yeah, they're saying
And
in the book I read 1981, but that could be argued.
and the funny thing is with the whole thing with the Chin is he got into this thing about playing the crazy part.
Yep.
And he would literally do daily walks with his brother, who was a priest, and
Mm-hmm.
that's I'm sorry, Reverend
Mm-hmm.
Lewis, and he would have Louis Gigante walk him every morning, and they would do this routine, and that's going to come back and haunt them basically, and Louis,
Yep.
and it's going to be because we learned a lot from Rita's interview. I mean, I've seen her interview before, but it seemed like she went a little bit deeper in this interview. Would you say that?
Yeah, definitely was. I mean, previously, only thing I would hear was about, that she had a good father. Maybe he wasn't around, but that much, but he was a good father and she give examples. But, she went a lot deeper this time.
She talked about his two families
Hmm.
and explained to us about the two families and that whole family dynamic. Let's call it that, but that's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really strange. So, you you always hear about the guys in the mafia. They talk about they have their wife and then they'll have their what do they call it, a goomba,
Yeah.
or whatever, and so basically a lover, a mistress. But in this case, he met another woman on the Upper East Side. Her name was Olympia. His wife is also named Olympia. So her name was Olympia Esposito. And so they actually had three children together. He would go over there 3 times a week and stay the night, and that went on for decades. They met in '67, and that continued even to the point of him finally going to prison in the late '90s.
And the funny thing about that is when they talk about it. Okay, so altogether he had 8 children.
Yes. Hmm.
No, and the two wives with the same name.
Yeah.
But the first wife knew about it
Yep. She knew about it.
and she accepted it.
Hmm.
So he wasn't very quiet about it. And another thing that he used to do, and Rita Gigante talks about this. Sometimes he would bring his business to the house.
Hmm.
And she said she witnessed her father beating a man with 2 other men
Yep.
where there was blood all over the house. And then they took the man away,
Yep.
and she said she never knew what happened to the man.
Yeah, and that
And that,
surprised me, to be honest, the way as secret as I thought he would be. That really surprised me.
yeah, uh, there is some issues with Rita and her family about her being so upfront about things.
Yes.
Um, so they're going to say whatever they want. Uh,
Hmm.
Only she knows whether it's true
Hmm.
with some of the things she says, but she's not telling a lie about the two families.
No.
We can't prove that he brought someone back to the house. But
Right.
she also said that when he was home, he would still be in character. And very
Yes.
rarely would he come out of that character of
Yep.
playing a crazy guy.
Yes, exactly.
So what does she say about that?
Well, no, I mean she just said that he would still be in the bathrobe. I guess this bathrobe would be dirty. It would smell. It was uh, it just was not. It was
Is
not
that the
pleasant
robe
for
right there?
people.
Is that the
Yeah.
secret robe? I hear when they took that robe off him at the precinct, it stood up on its own. It's still
Yeah.
standing in the same corner.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was awful. And so I mean it was just not uh respectful. But he's like an actor that just couldn't get out of character, or a wrestler that would be in character. It's just he would remain in character 95% of the time, and he would be talking to himself. He would always talk about having conversations with God and all that. And so there was something off about him, but he just struggled to, I don't know, it was just strange.
And he was a very good boxer. He was a boxer with a winning record,
He
and that's
was.
what Vito Genovese liked about him. He knew he was a tough guy, and he drove for Vito, and he also was his
Yep.
bodyguard, and
Yep.
that's why Vito protected him after he missed the hit on Costello.
Right.
And so he plays this part right here, and he has his robe on, and then what happens when he finally gets a? We'll talk about how he got caught. But before that, break it down. Okay, he gets busted. What happens at that point?
Yeah, I mean, it was 7 years to try to convince, basically having to go to institutions. There was a series of 4 psychiatrists. I believe there was 2 from the prosecutors, 2 from the defense that were to look at him. And initially, all 4 of them said, yeah, he definitely has he's paranoid schizophrenia, all types of other um, mental conditions. And
And
this was
he
all about I believe the Windows case is kind of what caused that.
and he would sign himself before he got arrested. He would sign himself into the institution every 3 months.
Yeah, he did.
Uh, So every 90 days he's going in, and he's doing 30 days.
Hmm.
So he's in for 90. He does 30. He comes out
Yep.
90, 30, and it gets to the point. It's like, how far are you going to take this insanity stuff? Because how much does it interfere with your life as an individual, as a person?
Yeah, I mean, it had to have done that, but he didn't have much of a life per se. He didn't go anywhere really. He would
When he had
get
all
sick.
those kids running around,
Yeah.
he wasn't really showing them a lot of affection.
No.
And
He didn't
I
go
would,
on vacation. He didn't drive. He didn't do anything but go between basically 3 homes. His 2 homes that he basically wives he's married to, and then his mom's home there in Greenwich Village. And then maybe he'd meet his brother, who was really a big deal. There's a lot of his brother was a councilman, but also um, he was a priest. They call him a reverend, but he's a priest. He was Catholic, and then but helped launder money, you know, and they
yeah, yeah,
had plenty of money.
he had quite a record. He had
Hmm.
quite a record, the priest, and he definitely had quite a record. I was reading up
Yeah,
on him. That's very interesting. A matter of fact, the oldest brother just passed away recently,
yeah,
and he was like pushing 100. He was almost at 100.
yeah.
So
They
they had
were
that
in
long.
it too. They were in the life too. The other 2
Yeah,
were in the life.
and so the whole family was in the life. But see, this is where they got him. So what happens is why don't you explain how they got him?
Oh, how they got him? Well, eventually, like I said, this had been going on for a long time, and so
Someone
he
got sick. Someone got very sick at his house, and he broke character. He got on the phone. He
hmm
broke character. He called the
yeah.
house, and he came out of the Looney Tune.
Oh yeah, he was asking if I believe it was either a son or someone, was he
Yes,
okay? Yeah, that's what happened.
and there they caught him with his normal voice,
Yeah.
and they got him on tape.
Hmm.
And he just broke character, and he let his guard down. And after all these years, one little incident,
Yep.
and so at this point, they got him.
Yep.
So they go to him and they say, "Look, here's what's going to happen. We have you.
Yep.
Uh, we want you to admit that you are not nuts. That it was just a game."
Right.
And he said, no, I'm not going to do that. But here's what
Right.
happened. Okay. First of all, you have his sons.
Yep.
Okay. So you got Salvatore and
Mm-hmm.
Vincent, the sons, and they're involved
Yeah.
with the father. They
Yep.
were part of the cover up. The wife
Yep.
was part of the cover up. The daughters was
Right.
part of the cover up.
Right.
The brothers were part of the cover ups. So they
Yep.
said, the Fed said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get your family. We're going to convict them all for obstruction of justice.
Yep. Exactly.
So you have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can pretty much take the blame,
Yep.
come forward,
Mm-hmm.
go to court,
Yep.
say that you played the part. And when he went into court, no one expected him. He came in looking disheveled and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody expected him to admit it was just a big game.
Yep. He did just hours before. So the trial was about to start, I believe April 7th, 2003. And said he pled guilty. He said he was, faking it for all those years.
And that's when, he did the right thing as a family man.
Mm-hmm.
But, everybody was part of this. And it's
Yeah.
like Rita, it's like his daughter Rita says. Everybody in the family knew that it was an act.
Mm-hmm.
But she said also when he'd be sitting at home watching TV and stuff,
Yeah.
and he'd come home from the act, he'd actually be sitting there still acting the part. And he
Yeah.
didn't have to.
Mm-mm.
When you start acting crazy, eventually maybe you will go crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely true.
So what do you find about this story? Listen, we can come on here, we can talk about the Chin, lots of stuff, and we're
Yeah.
going to do that down the road.
Yeah. Right.
But today I just wanted to talk about this part of him playing this insane guy, which he was not. And
Right.
here's the big question I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm going to play something for you.
Okay.
Okay, give me 1 second here. And I want to see, because there's something. Okay. Listen to this right here. Never lie because I don't fear anyone. You only lie when you're afraid. And then he had another one. It's better to live one day as a lion than 100 years as a lamb. And you prove that.
What you want about John Gotti, but there will never be another John Gotti. His influence in this genre is, if there wasn't a John Gotti, you wouldn't have nobody talking. He was front street and a gangster. And that's what he wanted to be, and that's what he was. And, you guys anybody could say what they want about him, right or wrong or indifferent. The fact of the matter is you can't deny what John Gotti was.
Never lie because. So I'm playing that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know why I'm playing it.
Right.
He said a couple things in there. Be who you are. Don't lie.
Yep. Right.
John Gotti you could say John Gotti was not known as a liar. He took his medicine. And then you'll always hear that, but Chin had his stuff together. But Chin didn't want to play the part of an act. He didn't want to play the part of a boss. I don't even think he wanted to be a boss.
Yeah, that's what was very strange about it, because, his motivation, he didn't have the type of motivation that you would normally see in a boss. I mean, he was definitely feared, but he himself did not want to go to jail. He feared going to jail. What happened in '59 when he went to jail stayed with him. And for whatever reason, the Chin did not want to go back to jail. And I know that obviously no one wants to, but John Gotti actually, when you listen to the tapes, he actually says that, that he believes he's going to end up in prison eventually. That was a lot of what he was trying to do, was to prepare the rest of the administration for when he is in prison. But the Chin he was going to do all he could to stay out of prison. But how do you run a family when you're gone, every 90 days for 30 days?
Yeah. See, that's the question. And
yeah.
That's why Giuliani said he wasn't really in charge. And people said, what do you mean he wasn't in charge? And Giuliani he was in charge at times.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, sometimes a boss doesn't want to take the eyes off the street for 30 days because it can cost them their life.
Yeah, he was like a chairman of the board type is what I saw him as. And then, Fat Tony, obviously, only reason Fat Tony wasn't made the true boss was that he had a stroke at the
Right.
same time, and so um, that was part of it. But yeah, you wonder how he, was he really motivated to? But he was definitely Cosa Nostra in a lot of ways.
Yes.
It's just the Chin was just unusual, just eccentric, just an unusual character.
And imagine you play a part to avoid something, and eventually you go down for it and you die in prison.
Hmm.
You die in a prison hospital,
Yep.
having someone taking care of you that's not your family.
Right.
And it makes you wonder whether maybe he just wasn't a gangster.
Yeah, and they only gave him like he only got 12 years, and he could have gotten out in 10 years with good behavior. But he died 3 or 4 years in. He had serious heart issues, and so he wasn't able to make it. But 10 years for all that he did, he got off pretty easy, and he only had to stay the last maybe 3 or 4 years.
And here's a question I like to ask people that are going to be watching this, and I
Hmm.
want you to put this down underneath here in the chat. Just I want you guys to write down underneath this. Do you think that him playing the crazy part affected him as a boss? And how would you compare him as a boss to John Gotti? Yes, he was in charge longer, but he also spent a lot of time in the hospital. He spent a lot of time playing a part. And I'm not taking either guy's side. I'm just saying you had one guy that said to the law, F you, come and get me. And they finally came and got him. Then you had another guy say to the law, I'm going to hide. I'm going to pretend that I'm nuts so you don't come get me. So there's two big dynamics going in two different directions here. What is your opinion, James?
Well, normally, here's what was weird to me also about it is normally if you're someone in the life and you even go to a psychiatrist, you're going to, basically be killed back in that time because
Yes.
there was always that fear that you would disclose secrets. And so it's strange that the Chin kind of had a pass. He could go to the hospital, but they knew that he was just faking it. But
But
at
you
the
made
same time,
that's a very good point. The thing
yeah,
was, and we've seen this in The Sopranos, and The Sopranos is a TV after all.
right.
But you had the boss of the family going to an institution for 30 days,
Hmm.
acting like he was crazy, and he was still accepted to run the family.
Yeah.
That is a very good question, James.
Yeah.
When you really think
Well,
about
he was just around a small group of people. That's the only way I think that he could have. And there was, I don't know. It's very interesting, how he was able to remain in power. And probably we don't know all the story about the real dynamics of that because the Genoveses have had a way since the 70s to have all these different types of bosses, front bosses, street bosses, maybe a real boss and
and he
maybe,
had a killer, and he had Casso from another family in his
yeah,
corner that he would
yeah,
use, and that's a hell of a guy to have in your corner because he was a
yeah,
brutal killer.
yeah. Tony Ducks was good friends with the Chin, and he had the Lucchese family basically was in
Yeah.
the Chin's corner.
So, and when you put two families like that together, that comes to, because the Lucchese family was considered to be right after. Okay, you had the Genovese Gambinos, 1, 2, who knows? Then you
Hmm.
had the Lucchese family right underneath it.
Yeah,
So,
and Bananos at the time they didn't even have a seat on the commission in
well,
the
the
80s.
Bananas were getting in trouble, and the Columbos
Yeah,
was the gang that couldn't shoot straight. Even though I
yeah,
think the Columbos had some crazy killers in it.
yeah, they
Uh,
did.
yeah, but it is interesting, and I just found this conversation interesting. This is food for thought for people. What do you think about it if we present it? And listen, people, we're not insulting the Chin. We're giving our opinion here and telling exactly what he did, and these are facts. And then the way his daughter presented it put a little more humanization behind it.
Yeah.
Would you say that when the way she talked about it made you really think a little bit more about this character he used to play?
Yeah, it really did because I didn't really think of that dynamic of how it would affect the family, and being able to see, and that's the first time I've seen her open up like that. She's never opened up like that in the interviews, and that's what really lead me to reading the book about the Chin as well that came out a few years ago. So pretty interesting stuff.
And actually, that I think that was the she has like 700,000 views on that, so
Hmm.
people had to like it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot of views. She's done interviews with Jimmy Calandra, and a few
Yeah.
she got good views, but she didn't get
Hmm.
the views that she got with Soft White Underbelly. And
Yeah.
so and a lot of, if you read underneath, a lot of compliments.
Hmm.
And I was just very impressed by the show. And James, I
Yeah.
just need to say, first of all, people, if you have not subbed to this channel, if you're new and you're watching this for the first time, please sub to the channel. And please like the video. We appreciate it. And we just wanted to throw something controversial at you, insult the Chin a little bit, and you guys can come back in the chat underneath here and tell us what you think. James, what would you like to say before I end this show?
No, I mean it's just really interesting content that under was it how do you pronounce the under white underbelly? Is that what
It's Soft White Underbelly.
soft white underbelly? They got a lot of good videos there. So
Look at that, we're shouting that show out. But that
Yeah.
show started with nothing, and you know what? They got 4.4 million subscribers now.
Yeah, and that's what surprised me. I hadn't really heard of them until you brought them up to me, and so a lot of good content.
Yeah, they're a big channel. I was going to play some of her interview, but I said, I ain't taking that chance.
Yeah.
Because they might have somebody watching. They might be in the algorithm. They're very popular, so they might be in the algorithm, and somebody might get back to them and say, hey, he played your stuff. So I said, okay. Well, we just talked about it.
Yeah.
James, thank you very much for coming on.
Yep,
And
appreciate it.
that's it, people. Tell us underneath what you think. We'd really appreciate it. Take care.
Take care.